Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Profiles in Risk. I am your host, Nick Lamparelli. On a late Friday afternoon and another cold winter day, I'm so cold that I had to wear my Ask Kodiak t-shirt for power to get me through this day. I'm very pleased to introduce my friend, Jennifer Overhulse. Jen is the principal and owner of St. Nick Media. St. Nick Media provides public relations, editorial, marketing, and media services, as well as go-to-market strategy consulting to the insurance and to the insurtech space. Shame on me for not having you on sooner, Jen.
Oh, no, I think it's my fault. I think I avoid these on-camera things. I was cute when I was 6, but you know.
We've known each other for 2 years, and I can't remember who. Someone said, "Hey, have you had Jen on?" And I was just like, "Oh, shame on me. How could I not have done that?" So, welcome. It's
Thank you.
about time. We'll make this a much more common occurrence. So, kick it all off. St. Nick Media. What do you do?
Well, these days it's more about what I don't do, I think. The business started as a way to kind of segregate my freelance income from my regular job way back in the day. And public relations decided it was going to be the lead for the moment. And today it's more about industry consulting, and I still do the press releases and the byline articles, the content creation, speaker recruitment, you name it. But most of it's sequestered in the insurance space these days. I'd say 90% to 95% of my business these days is in the insurance space. Go figure.
Yeah. And that's why you're a perfect guest, because the person I was speaking to said no one has their finger on the pulse better than you, because you get exposed to like a really good cross-section of the whole insurtech space. Like everything that's going on, you sort of know what's going on because you've been exposed to them in one way or another. And before we jump into that, where'd the name come from?
So I'm pretty sure I told you this story. So that's way back in the day. I think I had an instructor at some point or another said that any of you ever go and start your own business, you need to decide on a name that's going to be personally significant to you, and that if at all possible is also going to have some kind of a hook, right? That's going to draw people in. It's going to really make people come and talk to you and ask them questions. So St. Nick Media is my son Nikolai is adopted from Russia. So if you look at my logo, you'll notice there's an onion dome. We can talk conspiracy theories anytime you want. He's adopted from Russia. He's no saint. He knows I say that. And and past that, it's got a nice, quirky little turn of phrase to Father Christmas, Santa Claus, and it makes people laugh. So I thought that's personally significant to me, and I hope it's got enough of a hook to make people ask. So
it makes
thank
people smile. It makes me feel like what you do is angelic in Satan.
Yes, well, we can all aspire to that, right?
Okay. Well,
I don't think I've ever been called saintly before.
It was interesting to see when I was doing my research on you. I do know you, but I didn't know all the particulars that St. Nick Media is 21 years old. So let's rewind the clock back to the future and find out when you first started this, why? Why did you need this? What did you see in the market that you felt was underserved that you're like, I'm going to go do that and solve that problem?
I didn't, is the short answer. The short answer is probably because maybe I'm unemployable. So I actually, there you go.
I understand. Yep.
I started this just prior to my son's 22 now. So I started this just prior to coming into the insurance industry, believe it or not. And, like I said, it was a way to segregate my freelance writing income at the time, which was much more structured around archaeology than it was insurance, and to get something out of that. As I came into insurance, I was working for an insurance industry publishing company, and the venture capitalists came in and said we're gonna completely tear this playhouse down. We're gonna make this lovely ESOP family-owned company into some big corporation that no longer does what any of us thought it was supposed to do. So we went forth and
Mhm.
prospered. And one freelance client in the space became 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. One of my first clients was Panasonic Tough Books, believe it or not, in the insurance space. Yeah. So literally the day I quit the last full-time job, my contact at Panasonic called me up 2 hours after I walked out the door and said, "Hey, I heard you left." I said, "I did." He said, "I have $15,000 in discretionary funds. What are we going to do with it?" And it's like, okay, it pays to have friends,
It does. It pays to not blow up bridges. So
right?
you
There you go.
obviously made an impression and didn't blow up any bridges. So
Hmm.
uh, good job. Um, public relations, marketing, media services, almost an afterthought. It's almost like we got to build our product. We need to raise money. We need to find customers, and they forget that part of it. Explain why it should not be an afterthought.
So the interesting part about kind of the evolution of my business is it's gone from being pure public relations and really writing those press releases for different companies to a lot of different go-to-market strategy pieces, things of that nature. A lot more on the consulting side, a lot more on fitting things together, pieces and people together, and a lot of it's in the startup space these days. InsurTech is the latest, biggest, greatest thing, the
Hmm.
biggest shiny object around at the moment. So the startups that I work with are mostly in that space, and it's fascinating to watch because they are doing exactly what you said. They're worrying about the product. They're developing a technology solution. They're building out some kind of a value proper. They hope they are for the insurance space, and they do forget about it. But that means that there's a bigger lift when they get ready to raise money. There's a bigger lift when they get ready to go out and try and get the first customer because nobody knows their name. And and even if it's just an individual, that can start to develop some expertise around, like you in flood, for example. So
Hmm.
I mean, if you have a certain penchant for some area and it happens to be related to that solution, you as a founder, you as a startup founder, you as a CEO or a president need to be a voice. You can be a proponent, you can be an advocate for the company before you even really launch it, and certainly after. So that means that you're never going to make a cold call. That means you're always going to be on the tip of somebody's tongue. They're going to read you in a magazine. They're going to see you at a trade show. They're going to know who you are before you ever have to tell them. And that's the value of public relations is not having to spend $100,000 in advertising and wonder what you got back. You need to be an advocate for your business all the time, 24 hours a day.
Preach, preach. I can't stress that message enough. Like it. I can tell you from personal experience, just stories of going in to meet a reinsurance company and having someone lean over and say something like, I've listened to your podcast, or anything where they've seen me on Insurance Nerds or anything like that. What that does is that person feels as though they know who I am. They know a
Mm-hmm.
little bit about me. And that first meeting is not like, hey, let's get to know each other. That person already feels like they know me. So it's almost like meeting number 2 or meeting number 3. I've just greased the skids for
Yes.
for a potential deal, and that's what you do. And
Yes.
it's one of my biggest pet peeves with insurtech companies is and I know they don't have a lot of resources, but the guy that creates the product becomes like the head salesperson and the head marketing person. It's like you cannot possibly wear all those hats.
No, you
It's
can't.
it's not possible.
Mm-hmm. Here's a quick story for you. When I was working for that insurance industry publisher that I told you about, we had an opportunity where that publishing company that had been around for 100 years was going to partner with a really prominent insurance industry association. And our VP at the time was very, very prim, very proper. She asked me to write a promo that was really going to talk about the guts of this. It's really going to give people the idea that this is important, this partnership between these two organizations. So I went back to my desk and I thought about this, and boy, this is, what am I going to do here? And I need something
Hmm.
that's really going to grab people, right? And the promo that I wrote up really relied on what I saw as classic partnerships. And I dug deep and I came up with yin and yang and Hepburn and Tracy and Rocky and Bullwinkle and peanut butter and jelly. And I had what I thought was a fantastic way to get people to relate to this important milestone that our company was achieving. And I gave it to her, and she looked at it and down her nose a bit. And what I got back was, the insurance industry is too conservative for peanut butter and jelly.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really funny because, hey, I figured she was going for Rocky and Bullwinkle straight away. But what I got was the peanut butter and jelly thing. And I was kind of taken back by that, because I feel like every industry is built up of individuals. And the more that, the more that you know about me and I know about you, the more opportunity there is to find ways to work together, to understand the ways that the pieces can fit together well and really make things work better. And I don't know. I fundamentally disagreed with that with that feedback, and it's still the way I operate today. I think making something personally relevant, personally significant to somebody else, it can help your business as much as it can help you personally.
Completely. Well, even if Jen, even if it's as simple as, listen, no one is going to do business with someone they despise or dislike. Right. They're not going to give you a lot of money if they don't like you, right? So even if your marketing can lower that that guard and just have that person not dislike you, that's positive. If you can continue to move that finish line towards like getting them to like you, getting them to respect you, getting them to view you as a subject matter expert, like 100%. Now you're sitting down in meetings, and like when you say something like, I think you should do this, oh, there's someone smarter in this room that's saying I should do this, I should really consider that. That's the whole return that you get from that kind of work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting that you can draw in all kinds of voices depending on what you hear. And as a woman, I think I've spent that time really early on, thinking I had to be the loudest voice in the room. These days, if you don't agree with me, you don't agree with me, and I can agree to disagree. Interestingly, I've met some of the most interesting people that way and had some of the best discussions that way. I was building a session for the Accord conference a couple of years ago on drones. And the interesting part of that became that I didn't have a speaker that I needed. And I had run across, I posted something on LinkedIn that about drones and about regulation on the drone industry that helped me hook up with David West, who used to be with SAS and is now with IBM. And David and I fundamentally disagreed about the amount of regulation there should be around personal drones, commercial drone space, things of that nature. And the interesting part of that is that he thought there should be less regulation and I thought there should be more, and David's a pilot. So when it came time to build that drone session, first thing I did was jump on LinkedIn, send him a message and say, hey, you want to come and speak on this drone session? He said, wait a minute, are you really asking me that? He said, we disagree. And I said, and that's what's going to make it interesting.
Yeah, no kidding. The worst sessions are when you step up there or you're watching and everyone agrees with one another. Where's the drama? You know?
It's a lot of back patting. It's a lot of, excellent. Not interesting.
I want to hear trade-offs. I want to hear, on the contrary, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? I want to be surprised. I want to be like, oh, I didn't think about that. Like that's a very unique point of view.
Some of the most interesting things are when you really stepped in it, when you really screwed up. Those are the best stories.
That happens all the time. So companies that reach out to you and do public relations, marketing, media services, consulting, how should they be thinking about their spend? How should they be thinking about their return? Because the return isn't always, I spent X amount of money and I should see 5X come back. That's possible, of course, maybe more, but it comes in other ways, like very subtle ways, the way we describe, like, making it easier to have conversations, meetings, pitches, and stuff like that. Could you just talk about a little bit about how folks that are thinking of hiring someone that does what you do, what they should be thinking about in terms of spend and return?
Sure, absolutely. I always hated people that really wanted to hold you to a hard number, and it's really common in not just our industry, but others to say, well, IT is typically, between 3 and 10% of a company's revenue, so media marketing, advertising, public relations, how much, what percent, what number can we put on that? I always felt like that was a really vague thing to do, a really disingenuous thing to do, because and I've done social media presentations for years on end to the insurance space, which is an oxymoron in and of itself. But what you wind up is with the age old, well, I want 10,000 followers and I want them tomorrow. And the bottom line of it is fine, we're going to get you those 10,000 followers, but what are they going to do? What do you want them to do for you?
Mm-hmm.
What value are they bringing to your organization? So, I can tell you that I can speak from experience and tell you that I've never done a drop of advertising for St. Nick Media. Every customer comes to me because they saw me on a panel, or they interacted with someone I know from a personal reference. And I think that's the value that people should be looking for. It is much more intangible. It's a name recognition. It's a feeling. It is a vague thing, absolutely. But I think there's value in people knowing who you are, and in understanding what the personality of the company is, what the culture of the company is, and where you can really pull that together. So if you want to put a number on it, that's fine. I don't expect people to stretch. I think there's a comfortable budget number that everybody can work with, whether it's a small percentage per month or whatever. I have real trouble putting a number on it. I don't want to put a number on it. I want to put.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Let's go through the example. You were our media relations person when it came to Bill Wilson's book,
Yep.
When Words Collide. And
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't asking you to sell books.
Right.
That's our job.
Mm-hmm.
It's our job to sell books. It's Bill's job to sell books.
Mm-hmm.
And so what were we looking for? What you delivered, which is more opportunities for speaking engagements, more opportunity for conferences, more opportunities where we could get Bill in front of the type of audience he wanted to get in front of.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's Bill's job when he's there to sell books. So
Mm-hmm.
It is indirect. It was our return on investment. Yeah, could we draw a straight line from the work that you did to the number of books that were sold? We absolutely could. But it was okay, what is, there's a responsibility that we need to take to do our magic. We're selling a particular type of product. We want Jen to set the pins up in a particular way that makes that job easier. That's what you did.
Mm-hmm. This is to me, this is the age-old story of every company that has ever gone in and set up a booth in an exhibit hall. And the boss has demanded, X number of leads when they come home. If you walk through any exhibit hall, and you're going to walk through and you're going to find some person that is sitting at the back of the booth, and they've got their laptop set up over here, and they're clicking away, and they're answering their email, or they are eating their lunch, or they're doing whatever it is they're doing. And you walk two more booths down, and you have somebody who is standing out there at the aisle. They are engaged. They are smiling. They are ready to talk to you. They don't care if you're an attendee or another exhibitor. They're just open to having a conversation with you. Those are the people that are going to win. Those are the people that are going to come home with the leads at the end of the day. And the guy sitting back there in the back of the booth, or the girl sitting back there checking her email, that's not the way it works. You have to put in just as much effort. To your point, I can set the stage, and hopefully you're going to get the right number of pickups and the right number of eyes on that release to get you those opportunities. But yeah, absolutely, everybody has to close on their own. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what combination of things do you think lends itself best to the amplification of the message, where, or to get the best ROI, so to speak? Even if that means I want to get the most leads, what are the types of things that should be done? First, there are press releases, there's advertising, there's this and that. What sort of things have you seen in the insurtech space? You could talk about insurance if you want. That sort of leads to if you do these combination of things, that's going to allow to get the best amplification of the message. You'll get the best ROI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't think it's any one thing, strangely.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to have a real mixed channel approach, because if I look at, maybe I prefer to receive things by text because my email inbox is a black hole. Maybe you prefer to receive things on Slack because your email inbox is a black hole. Mm-hmm. Everybody has their own channel. Some people are going to look at print magazines. They're going to rip pages out on an airplane on the way home from a trip. Other people are going to look at bylined articles funnels. Other people are going to look at, email marketing, one-to-one, sales call, whatever it is. So I feel like every company has to have some mix in there. But the insurance industry is not alone. So I have a journalism degree. That's where I come from. I thought back in the day, I have a background in journalism, archaeology, and political science. So I was either going to be an archaeologist
nice combination.
or an right? I wasn't sure. So Indiana Jones, some variation thereof, but the whip appealed to me. I'm kidding. That said, I wound up with a journalism degree for a reason. And Woodward and Bernstein aside, you won't make a penny in journalism. And what it tells you is that journalism, the model there is changing as quickly as any other industry, and finding a way that to my friend Sam Friedman's point, who used to be editor of National Underwriter, Property and Casualty, they have to find a model that it doesn't equate to indentured servitude for editors before this is really going to be a good gig again. The editors at the trade publications in the insurance space, and I'll just say insurance space and mean everybody, they don't have any more hours in the day than they used to. These people used to support one monthly magazine or one weekly magazine, print. Now they support a digital publication, an e-newsletter, a podcast, a webinar, web exclusive content, social media, blogs. They're doing roundtables for advertisers, or they're going to shows, they're moderating things. They don't have any more days. They don't have any more hours, and God knows they don't have any more money. So we've reached a point where there is more opportunity in the trade publications for everybody to get published, for everybody to be that thought leader. I hate to use that word, but that combination of words.
True, though. Yeah.
But it is. But in order to actually get there and get to the thought leader perspective, you have to be willing to chuck the ego. You have to be willing to not give the sales message, and to strictly go with a problem solution kind of perspective. So as much as you're going to be proactive, because the editors need you to be proactive, you're going to push out a press release, and it's going to give you an opportunity to get in front of them, to give them some little tidbit that will perk up their ears and make them interested in you. And that's when you can get the speaking opportunities and the byline articles and things of that nature, as long as you're willing to, like I said, check the ego and absolutely, do it from a perspective of helping the industry. So, yeah.
It's advice I give when folks write articles for insurance nerds.
Mm-hmm.
It's, listen, we'll give you a platform. You can talk about your company. You can talk about your solution. Just don't make it an ad. Yeah. You don't have to.
Right? You can sound like an expert, or you can sound like an ass. Your choice.
Just you are the founder or the product creator or whatever. This is your opportunity to get geeky, nerdy. Mm-hmm. You're on insurance nerds. This is your opportunity to get nerdy. Be the nerd. People will think of you as the thought leader. Yeah, you can slide in your solution. That's fine. But people want to know. They want to perk up. They want to know, what should I be worried about? What should be keeping me up at night that I'm not aware of? And you happen to have a solution. Those generally work the best versus the straight off ads where it just looks like someone's trying to pitch you something. Yep,
absolutely. I completely agree. It's like I said, you can look like an expert or you can look like an ass.
I want to pick your brain on the insurtech space because, as I mentioned, there may not be a person that's more plugged in, has their finger on the pulse. So I want to get the lay of the land. How do you feel about the current state? I know you just came back from Des Moines, Iowa, from the GIA. What is the current state? My sense is things seem to be slowing or morphing into something that's different now. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I'm kind of stuck in the forest. What's your view?
The nice part about what I do today is that I get an opportunity to see all kinds of angles into the insurance and the reinsurance space. I talk to insurance company folks, I talk to analysts, I talk to technology companies, established technology companies, and I talk to startups. I just absolutely everybody in a day. And to your point, the Global Insurance Accelerator is one of my clients out in Des Moines, Iowa, and it's a fascinating insurance environment to go out there, and you can wind up talking to the VP of underwriting from an insurance company one minute, and to a startup founder who has a solution in epigenetics the next day. So, I me's a wide swath, but it gives me a lot of insight into things that are going on in the market. And to your point about what keeps you up at night, that I'm of the age where I don't sleep between 1 and 3 in the morning. And, that's it. At 2 in the morning, I'm thinking about, the fluidity in the MGA model. And I'm thinking about the way that reinsurers are starting to invest their money maybe a little bit differently than they have in the past. Instead of taking that reactive seat to their insurer partners to maybe get involved in things like B3I, to start up accelerators of their own, to push their insurer partners in a new direction, to look at, to your point about insurtechs, how many of these startups fail because they don't have enough runway, because they don't have a short-term revenue strategy. And launching an MGA has become kind of that short-term revenue strategy for them. And big bonus, it's also become a test environment for their technology product as they get ready to launch it, which is fascinating. But I think it's also from my perspective really confusing to the incumbent insurers in the market, who sit back and say, wait a minute, we thought we knew what the MGA was. We thought we knew how those behave. We thought we knew how we were supposed to act or react with them. And suddenly they don't. You look at things like Next Insurance, who launches as an MGA and then all of a sudden is like, oh, hey, we're going to write on our own paper. It's confusing. It's threatening to incumbents in the marketplace, and it sends everybody kind of up into a bit of a panic, I guess. So as much as InsurTech hits its stride and really starts to say, they're become evident which companies are going to fail, which companies are going to succeed, there is, to your point, there's a plateau at a certain point. I called it a bubble way back, and I think it's a series of little mini bubbles. There's plenty of money going in. The question is the value coming out? And at this point, I think the solutions that really have the most value in the marketplace right now are the ones where the founders maybe came from the industry. Those are the ones that I love to see. And somebody asked on LinkedIn the other day, why are all these insurtechs constantly hiring technology people? And I said, because the most successful, the most valuable startups in the insurtech space, those people come from the industry. They saw a problem and they said, we need a way to solve it. And you know what? They may not be technology people. They may not be software engineers, but they can sure hire the technology talent to build that solution. Yeah. So as much as you've got that, so the successful startups in the space right now are the ones that are not so focused on disruption. They want a solution. It doesn't have to be disruptive. We don't have to blow something up every time we go to solve a problem. So there's a value to not throwing the baby out with the bathwater sometimes. So it's an interesting time in the space because I think there's a lot more opportunity to come, but it's going to concentrate on areas that have more tactical value, I guess, to insurance companies, more concentration in my mind on underwriting, the data and the analytics. That's a huge piece. If I look at technology, the way that everything's been realized or recognized in the past, the core administration system really sat kind of at the center, the hub, if you will, of the wheel. And, and that everything kind of radiated out from there. And you got a model where the vendor was in charge and not the insurance company. And I think the interesting thing about that at this point is I look at it and see that shifting fundamentally, that more and more of the industry is about to realize, if they haven't already, that the center of that wheel, the hub of that wheel, is actually the data. And, moving away from the way we used to do integrations with enterprise service bus and moving toward APIs, it really enables more of an approach with where the insurer is in charge. That insurance data becomes the center of the wheel again. And all of these services, core included, policy dips down into the data, claims dips down into the data, digital payments dips down into the data, so that you're coming from that one central place. It means that insurers are going to move away from hiring the technology people. Insurers are going to move to contributing to our global shortage of data scientists. They're going to, they need the data. They need the data experts. They have to be able to deliver that data out to those services in a useful and consumable format. And the more that we can move away from, the structured data, and that really defined model there, where insurance companies have trouble relating to third-party data providers or doing open web searches or incorporating photos back into a policyholder file, the more that we can move toward a better, holistic view of that data, then everybody benefits. And there's more and more and more opportunity for InsurTech as we go forward. So yeah. I don't know, that's a long-winded answer and a long way around, a lot of things. So
I'm getting the sense that insurance companies, reinsurance companies, those that have already been in the ecosystem, that they're making investments, whether it's through their innovation arms or whatever, and I'm getting a sense, I'd like to get your feedback on this, that they've seen in the initial investments that it's taking a long time to kind of get traction in some of these companies. And I'm getting the feeling that they're just deciding, wow, that's a great technology. Let's invest in it and let's pull it in and make it more proprietary or ours. Like they want, I think they want
to control it.
They want to control it. I'm seeing more of that versus, hey, we're going to make an investment and we'll help you go find customers or whatever. But I think it's transitioning because that model just in insurance space takes a long time for it to get traction. And like you said, if you don't have enough runway, you'll run out of money. So the insurance companies recognize that and say, let's just pull these companies in quicker into our ecosystem. To me, like Risk Genius would be an example of that, where QBE and Risk Genius have formed more of a partnership, and I think they're embedding themselves. They're betting on one another to execute on that. Am I getting that sense right? Wrong? Is that something you're seeing?
I think you're spot on. I think about it this way. 5-6 years ago, I think the big debate for insurance companies in buying core systems or any other real technology solution was, how is this going to be deployed? Is this an on-premise installation, implementation, or is this cloud? And when you get to the cloud question 5 or 6 years ago, you really have to sit back as an insurance company executive and say, okay, how do I sell this upstairs? How am I answering the security question? Do I still own my data? Who has access to my data? All of those things that we now know, we didn't know then. And it gave insurance companies a real discomfort with cloud. The same thing's true of blockchain today, right? Nobody's completely comfortable with that technology at this point, and you ask the same questions that they ask about cloud. Isn't that interesting? Is it really private? Is it really secure? Do I still own my data? Where is my data? How does it, and they're not sure about those questions now. So blockchain's having the same kind of growing pains, the same kind of experience that cloud did. But you see an evolution, right? So cloud, once we've now gone to where we accept that cloud is the de facto way that we need to deploy technology, the way that we need to be able to draw things in, then you say, okay, and insurance companies, again, trying to control it, trying to put their own spin on it. Like, okay, well, you know what, we'll do cloud, but it's got to be single tenant. It's got to be single tenant. What they don't know is, while they're mandating single tenant over there, most of them have already done multi-tenant by engaging with Salesforce and AWS in the first place. So, there's a distrust, there's an inherent distrust that I think insurance companies have in terms of technology, which makes them always hang back a little bit, which is where the industry got its reputation for being so cautious and being so, kind of hang back.
I was going to say, I don't know if you know, but the insurance industry is conservative.
Right? Exactly. And,
they don't like peanut butter and jelly.
I'm not sure if I can say that out loud, but so there's a huge, okay, so let's face it. The technology vendors years and years ago gave those startups and everybody else in the environment today a little bit of a bad name, because there were plenty of them out there that went with, vaporware and really wanted a co-development partner out there to get them going, right? They weren't going to build out multi-currency or multi-language until they had somebody who was really going to sponsor that project and make it worthwhile for them. So today you get a lot of insurtech startups, for example, that think that they have to do unpaid or pilots or POCs. And I am not an advocate for an unpaid pilot or POC. I am a big believer in you get what you pay for, and you have to have some skin in the game. If I am somebody who is sitting internally, let's face it, very few of these insurtech startups have onboarding or training resources. They don't have videos. They don't have staff that's going to go out and hold a class. So it's incredibly difficult to get an insurance. If you're doing that unpaid pilot or POC, it's incredibly difficult to get that company's internal users to engage with the software, to engage with the solution. And I don't care if you're paying per transaction. And so at the end of the day, they say, you know what, it's just one more thing on my to-do list. I really don't need to do that. And we're not paying for it anyway. In 90 days, it'll be gone and I don't have to worry about it. And then
We're crying out loud.
It's crazy.
I worked in a department that was doing data and analytics, and you end up, and that was an internal department. This wasn't like a startup. And you do a project with like the underwriting team, and more than half the battle is getting them to use what you're
Getting them to use.
building. Like
Yes.
they can't implement
Mhm.
it, you know,
Right.
and just like a year later, it's still stuck on the shelf. Nobody's using it. Like
Yeah.
that's a huge challenge. And every time I hear POC and startups getting in POC, I think of Chris Downer's POC purgatory. Like
Yeah.
you get stuck in this POC land and you can't bust out of it. And I think it's very important for insurers or reinsurers that are making investments in these areas to understand when you put one of these startups in a POC, one, they should get paid,
Yes.
right?
They're
Right?
putting an extraordinary amount of time and effort into it, and there's a solution that the insurer or the reinsurer was not able to bring to the table themselves. They
Yeah.
weren't able to build it in house. They weren't able to fix this themselves. So there's value in that, and it should be recognized
You're increasing the odds
monetarily.
that the company's going to fail because they're
Right.
burning through cash as they're
Mhm.
working through this POC with you,
Yeah.
right? And there should be an exit plan from the POC. Like there should be some, I think this is where someone like you or someone in the company needs to be more sales-ish and just negotiate out like when this POC is over, then what? What's the next
Right.
step on
Right.
that? It can't be the POC's over and then we'll see we'll see the results. There's got
Mm-hmm.
to be a plan in there. It's got to move to some other level beyond the POC, or else you're
Yeah.
stuck in it and
Well, and
you're burning through
you're
cash.
right. And and this is a solvable problem. I mean, while the insurtech startups may not have the resources or the funds to be able to build out a professional services kind of team that's going to go out and help with training or implementations,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they can lean a little into the video resources, right? But the insurance company has to bend as well. They've absolutely got to put some skin in the game in order to get their users engaged, because otherwise, we're stuck at an impasse where nobody wins. And the insurtech startup here is, well, our users, they didn't use the solution. Internally, we didn't use the solution, and that's the worst thing they can hear, because they
Absolutely.
don't know they don't know the value. They don't know how to get the value over to the insurer, the reinsurer's team. And I mean, let's face it, if all this is for the insurer is a lipstick on a pig kind of an exercise so that they can check a box and say we did innovation, then go ahead. Do your unpaid POC. If you can get an insurtech startup to agree to it, more power to you, rock on. But if you really want it to be successful, you need to have skin in the game. Everybody needs to be above board about it. So yeah.
I love the skin in the game. I really do. Before we move on to the more personal questions that I always ask my guests, one more lay of the land. I don't want to let you go without picking your brain a little bit more and having the audience hear it. So again, you've seen a big cross section of different companies, and you're active in the GIA. So you have your finger on the pulse. Successful versus unsuccessful startups. Some key differentiators between the two. What do the successful ones pretty much do right, and what do the unsuccessful ones? How do they flub up?
So you're right. Working with GIA, I get to see a ton. This year's GIA cohort has 10 companies, pretty much evenly divided between property casualty and the life space. And it's really interesting to watch as you watch these, cohort after cohort come through, and you watch, go to InsurTech Connect, you go to different shows, and you see a lot of these startups. And what's the magic button? One of them,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, is that they have an ability to look at a problem and approach it from like I said, a transformation or an adaptation or a progression and evolution kind of way, as opposed to just pure disruption. The startup founders that go in there and that are just intent on blowing something up for the sake of blowing something up are going to fail. They're going to be successful. Those are the ones that wind up offending more than they succeed. And that doesn't win friends and influence people. So adapt, roll with the punches, figure out a way that you can improve processes, that you can streamline something that's really manual and disjointed now, introduce automation, look for those opportunities to enhance as opposed to disrupt. So that's one key thing to me. The other is that you have to have a startup team that is willing to listen and learn. There are a ton of them that have almost the right idea, almost the right take on it. And with just a little bit of a suggestion from this person or that person or an advisor or, a mentor of in some fashion, they can be successful. But they've got to have, it doesn't even need to be a 180-degree pivot. It doesn't need to be any of that. It can just be a minor tweak on your product or your messaging. Look at it don't look at it as reducing call center volume. Look at it as introducing customer engagement opportunities. I mean, there's usually a spin, right, that you can take. So those founders that are willing to listen and that are willing to take a perspective from whoever they're pitching to, those are the ones that are more likely to be successful. And then, of course, you've got to have, if it's a technology solution, you've got to have good tech.
To have good tech. I like that. I'll go along with that. Like, my MGA is known for doing flood. We did somewhat pivot. We're still doing our old business model, but we stumbled across a couple things and we realized, we asked a few questions. We asked basically, would this be a solution that you would pay for? And we dabbled our foot in it and realized there's another opportunity here that we didn't know existed. Let's explore it. And now we're creating a separate division that's just focused on those opportunities. And those opportunities have bared fruit bigger and faster than our original business model. We're still not giving up on it. It's still valuable to us.
Yes.
But you're right. Like, it wasn't a 180-degree pivot. It was a slight deviation. It was like you're kind of iterating through just feeling the sweet spots. And it reminds me of Airbnb. I remember I listened to a podcast on the creation of that business model, and you listen to the founder, and that's exactly what happened. Yeah, at the end, it was a significant pivot if they had done that from the beginning, but they kind of like an ant crawling,
little adjustments
that ended up adding up to a big adjustment when you looked at the grand scheme of things.
Right. And it really is. People that know me will have heard me say this before. My favorite analogy, because it's so not true. As a startup founder, you have a tendency to drink your own Kool-Aid. You have to drink your own Kool-Aid. You have to be your biggest salesman. You have to be your biggest champion. And every single day you have to get up ready to rock it and ready to go. This is the greatest idea since sliced bread, as the old saying goes. And with that said, I say every time, like I said, people will have heard me say this, I can sit in my office all day long and convince myself that I'm a swimsuit model. And at the end of the day, when you come out in the bikini and your teenage son goes, "Damn, Mom, put on some clothes," for sure that feedback is going to tell you, you are not the swimsuit model. Yeah. And it is as true of me and the bikini as it is of every single startup founder out there, the ones that are willing to take as much feedback as they can get, just to soak it up like a sponge. Those are the ones that are really going to come away with the most useful, the most valuable tool, the most valuable solution that people are going to pay money for and that people are going to respect in the marketplace later.
Yeah, the reality distortion field.
That's it.
Coined by someone that worked with Steve Jobs, who was just like bending reality to his will, but sometimes you can do it and a lot of times you can't do it, but it's that trade-off, because like you realize you're bringing a solution to the table that may not be, it may not be sliced bread. It's a solution, but it may not be sliced bread, but you need that daily motivation. Like how are you going to, turn your computer on every day? You need a little bit of the reality distortion field to just say, I am a swimsuit model. I mean, look at me, right?
That's
so I get it. Good, great insights. This is the part of the podcast where, because I'm lazy, I like to pick the brain of my guests to figure out things that they're doing that might help me in my day-to-day lives. So a question I ask all my guests, Jen, are, what tools or techniques do you use to stay productive and or organized?
I'm unfortunately for you probably a little more old school than most of your other guests. I will.
You'd be surprised.
I use some modified version of a bullet journal. So yes, it's.
I have my hands. Yep.
I tried forever to be that, that digital person who put 180% of everything into, the phone and the calendar. And the reality is, the way that my brain is a very linear thing. And I work better if I write it down, plain and simple. I abolished Post-it notes from my office. There's my tip for the day. Post-it notes are evil. They must die. Because the worst part is I will write it down on a Post-it note. I can see it, literally see it on that yellow Post-it note or on that blue Post-it note on my desk and think, I know where it is. I can see it. And by that time, it was stuck to something else that got thrown away. I put something over top of it. I moved it to another room, whatever the case may be. Post-it notes are evil. They must die. Bullet journal. I write everything down. I write it down, and then the next day I usually translate my notes of any kind into different action items. I went back for a little while ago and reorganized my inbox to the point where the oldest things are on top. It doesn't always work for me, but it's better than nothing. I'm trying. I'm gonna get there. So I've got to write it down, and I've got to find some way to keep it organized, because otherwise it's all these things just kind of bubbling around in my head.
I think there's a really big pushback on digital organization. It's I think people are overwhelmed.
Yeah,
it's really difficult. That's why I needed a calendar notebook. I needed both. I didn't want to carry two things, so I found one. It's working so far. I can have my calendar there. I can write stuff in. I do use the digital calendar, but I can take notes. So I have your name listed here for this conversation, and right next to it I have space where I can jot little notes and say bullet journal. Don't forget to mention Alan and Ask Kodiak in the show notes on this. So I think there's a big push to go back old school with things regarding organization, because I just think it's our digital experience is just overwhelming to people.
Well, since we have the Ask Kodiak kind of sub theme running there, I'll tell you, Ask Kodiak is one of the companies that I really have an appreciation for, that didn't try to blow things up, but tried to take a really manual, disjointed process and automate the shit out of it. And I love what those guys have done. I think it's a great company and a great product. So go check them out.
Yeah, well, the Insurance Nerd Slack channel had a great conversation with a whole bunch of people going back. Well, Penguin, Ask Kodiak, and what I thought the coolest part was so we're all talking about, well, what do these companies do? And we're all piping in, and then the people from Bold Penguin and Ask Kodiak came in and said, this is what we do. And it's like, we got our own little water cooler there. But you're right. Like, it's to me, I think that becomes a big part of it, not blowing up bridges. You want to be able to cross back over. So my final question to you is, what books have been influential in your business and or personal lives? Any books that stick out that have really shaped you business-wise or personally?
There's a ton of them, undoubtedly. I read a lot. But I hesitate to mention any one of those, because what sticks in my mind at the moment for some reason is I'm a gigantic Tom Petty fan. And my father died when I was 7 years old. When I was 6, Tom Petty's American Girl came out, and I remember vividly listening to that song and being intrigued, because it didn't sound anything like what I remember. So any other music that I was listening to on the radio at that time. My father also introduced me to sci-fi, by the way. So Star Wars came out. He dragged me kicking and screaming to the theater to see Star Wars, and today two of my favorite things in the world are Tom Petty and sci-fi. So go figure. That said, Tom Petty is a motivator for me. He's something that continually, every single day, I think about this one line out of a song. And that one line out of a song is, most things I worry about never happen anyway. And it's a nice reminder to me, whether I'm talking about, business, whether I'm stressing out because my kid, who is now, thank God, moved out of the house, bought a snake and wrecked the car all in 1 week. Hello. It's most things I worry about never happen anyway. The snake lives someplace else. My son was not hurt when he wrecked the car. So best case scenario. And, hey, we're all overwhelmed. To your point, we're trying to get through it just like everybody else. And most things I worry about never happen anyway.
Yep. Uh, I saw Tom Petty at the Boston Garden about a month before he died.
Yep. Me too.
So it was like, whoa, you know.
Hmm.
So
I was in Vegas for Insurtech Connect, the very first Insurtech Connect.
mhm,
There was the shooting, the really horrible shooting,
mhm,
right there in Vegas. And then the next day, as if that wasn't surreal enough, the next day I was having a business lunch down there at Caesars, and my cousin texted me, knowing how much I love Tom Petty, and my phone just lit up and said, Tom Petty died. And I looked at that and I went, whatever, Willie Nelson's died like 6 times. And I just thought it was, I thought it was crap.
yeah,
That's real. And, it's interesting. That was a big, kind of, as a lot of people in my age group, at least, did this last week. Luke Perry died from
mhm,
90210. And,
mhm,
millions of women my age, I guess, probably he was never one of my big crushes, but there's your mortality moment, right? So
sure,
when your favorite rock star, when your favorite singer dies, when your favorite TV heartthrob dies or whatever, it's there's your mortality moment. But I guess, like I said, Tom Petty, most things I worry about never happen anyway. It keeps me in the moment, keeps me concentrating on one foot in front of the other, on checking off something else on that to-do list that's going to be meaningful, that's going to give somebody else some value, that's going to move these projects that are top of mind for me down the road. So
awesome, great
that's it.
conversation, great way to
Yeah.
end it. I appreciate you coming on and giving us the lay of the land when it comes to
Anytime.
media and press releases in the insurtech scene. So, um, 2 years, shame on me for not getting you on sooner.
Not at
But
all.
I got my Ask Kodiak shirt on. I feel powerful.
Mhm.
Happy International Women's Day to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the weekend. And my guest this week has been Jen Overhulse of Saint Nick Media. I'll put all of the information in the show notes. Jen, thanks again.
Thank you, Nick. You have a great weekend.
You too.